I've studied and written about the politics of yoga and wellness culture for a decade, but I think I've missed something up until now. So I've focused on the roots of lifestyle wellness in early 20th century physical culture with its nationalist blood and soil beliefs, spent a lot of time on things like how the Nazis really loved yoga, and that's been really useful for exploring the attitudes of the MAGA and MAHA movements towards health, disability, sexuality, fat people, medical expertise, and how all of these body anxieties are microcosmic to panics about immigrants or enemies within or perceived sexual perversion. Basically, my beat has covered how there's an overlap between, say, anti vax fears and unknown Muslims entering the homeland. It's a soft eugenics movement wrapped in anxious neocolonial fascism. But here's what I think I've missed. My lens on Trump followers, and I'm not alone in this, is of a population manipulated by their own neuroses or cognitive errors. MAGA people are anxious about purity. They're under the sway of the naturalistic fallacy. They're seeking a pure world and golden age that never existed. And all of this serves to rationalize and accelerate their latent bigotries about race, gender, class, and religion. That's been the story so far. It's a solid analysis, but it's also incomplete because it only fully works if you believe that the enormous movement that brings Trump to power is mostly neurotic. And I think we want to believe that. I think we want to believe that there's something infantile about this coalition that doesn't let them think critically, or that they're congenitally bigoted and they were just waiting for Trump to come along and light the match. And we may not be wrong about that for many folks. But what's missing from this analysis is any positive motivation, any sense of what they are moving towards. And I think what I've been missing is that we don't have a positive theory of fascist pleasure. We have pathological theories. Wilhelm Reich said that fascism was repressed and sublimated sexuality. Theodor Adorno said that fascism created libidinal bonds between followers and leaders. But I've always been kind of disarmed by the outrage of the RFK Jr. stan who is called out for medical misinformation, because she earnestly presents herself as being the innocent mama bear who just wants to love her family in the most wholesome way possible. So now I think there's a basic pleasure at play within the Maha Mamas, and you can see it most clearly in the DIY nature of wellness and lifestyle fascism. The pleasure of relieving industrial alienation, if just for a moment. Okay, so what do I mean? Just think about all of their idealized activities: working out, intense daily routines, fermenting raw milk, doing your own research, drinking your own pee, using Menzies for facial masks, kneading your sourdough with unwashed hands, cooking complex meals from a shrinking list of elite foods, having 10 free birth babies without medical intervention. All of these actions are forms of direct bodily labor that relieve alienation. Through labor, they transform the urbanized body and the Costco resources that surround it into intimate forms of artisanship. They are proving their bodies are here and real, and that's the pleasure. Now, I used to think that the endless purification and self improvement rituals of the wellness crowd signified neurosis. As I said, they're polishing their turds. But that really discounts other feelings that flow out of their labor: the feeling of refusing the mysterious manufactured corporate product, the prepared food, the fast fashion. It's the feeling of making something your own, the feeling of closing the gap between production and consumption, of really partaking of the world that gives you life. The Maha movement could be called Make Labor Real Again. But of course, it's an illusion. Vanishingly few people are really homesteading or off grid, and those who are aren't really influencing online political discourse. The Tradwife and Optimizer Bro are performing their artisanal rituals like animatronic dolls on a ship in a bottle on Elon Musk's desk. And fascism will allow them these sensuous pleasures as long as they can be harnessed into a nationalist narrative and weaponized against perceived enemies, the prudes, the bean counters, the childless cat ladies, and woke hall monitors that don't want you to have any joy. And they'll strongly encourage it if it bolsters the misogynistic hierarchy. If the Tradwife's pleasure is contingent on serving the nuclear family, if the broadcaster's pleasure is contingent on his self-actualization as alpha. Fascists love that. But the origin point for yearning for pleasure may be the existential crisis in capitalism that Marx identified, that we are separated from the earth and from ourselves by commodification. For me, this is a helpful new angle because it reminds me why, when as anti-fascists or anti-capitalists, we do real things together, from baking to neighborhood gardening to a tool library or a community kitchen, it feels so good. Just like those sucked into fascism, we yearn to have our alienation dissolved. But the difference is that when we feel it, we know it can prefigure a change in the entire world economy. And I think the Tradwives and Bro Science podcasters want to have a sensuous anti-capitalist home life, but they want it to be wrapped up in the American flag as protection against the perceived chaos of capitalism dissolving. So I think maybe we should remember this potential commonality, that Tradwives and Bro Science podcasters are yearning for authenticity, but they don't know why they don't have it. They think feminists took it away from them instead of capitalism. But you know differently, because when you do something for yourself or your neighbor with your hands, it feels wonderful. And you know that it is both natural and radical. And so maybe if the Maha mom down the street feels this too, there's a way to tell her that she's right, but that she doesn't want that pleasure captured by men like Trump and RFK Jr., who are only interested in bodies and the earth to the extent that they can consume them.